Hello everyone, it is Monday the 8th of May 2023. Welcome back to the D3D4 football podcast dedicated to all things Leagues 1 and 2. It's here. The final day review in the third and fourth tiers, our last regular season episode ever. What a season it has been. What a brilliant couple of days of football it has been. And what a set of playoff ties we have ahead of us to look forward to. We are recording this just a few hours after the League 2 season came to an end. The Championship season has literally just come to an end. What an epic finale that was in the playoff race. So much was left undecided before a ball was kicked both today and yesterday. In League 1, you had the division's title up for grabs between two sides. There were two teams still battling for the final playoff spot. Only one of four teams was going to survive relegation down to the fourth tier. And then you look at League 2, a two-team dogfight for that third and final automatic promotion spot, as well as all of the selection and all of the order of the four playoff teams left completely unknown ahead of kickoff. We are here to dive into all of it for one last time during this regular season. And it's a tandem to do this episode. Is myself, Edward Walker, joined by Harry Thomas, who not long ago was at Prenton Park enjoying a team getting promoted.
Enjoying is a stretch. I was witnessing a team being promoted. It wasn't mine, sadly, so...
Nah, but come on, you've got to be pleased for Northampton, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying when I've been on over the last few weeks, if John Brady got Northampton up in the automatics, he deserved so much credit. I mean, considering the injury crisis that they've had, and I mean, looking a bit further back, obviously the knockback this time last season, they've done so well to dust themselves down. And yeah, full credit to them. They've completely deserved it. And early signs are that I think they'll be all right next season.
We'll have to wait and see on that, but we will touch on the Cobblers a little bit later into our League 2 section. But the one before we get going, this podcast is in partnership with The Big Step, which tackles football's relationship with gambling. There is an excessive presence of gambling adverts within football, and The Big Step continue to do great work to raise awareness about the dangers of gambling and the impact it can have on so many people's lives. We'll get going, and we will begin with the world's best third tier.
League 1.
Now, just a little heads up for those of you listening. This is going to be quite League 1 heavy, this episode, because the truth is there was more riding on League 1, a lot more undecided on the final day than there was in League 2, but we will look to give both divisions the justice they deserve. And Harry, we're going to start right up at the top of League 1. There was a league title to win. To be honest with you, I didn't care less who it was. It was between Plymouth Argyle and Ipswich Town. Plymouth Argyle in the driving seat, and it is the Pilgrims who started the day top of the table that have got that title. They were away at Vale Park yesterday against Port Vale, went behind to a lovely goal from one of Port Vale's own youngsters, James Plant, who's emerged recently. He was playing out wide yesterday. He's been shunted into a midfield role at times this season. Great through ball and built to his goal. But Plymouth Argyle restored their lead. One of their own products, Adam Randell, fired them level. It was a goal from Joe Edwards, who gained the lead at the back post. And then substitute Thinazaz off the bench to score in the second half. Matty Taylor having a header disallowed to Port Vale later into the game. James and I, Harry, we went through Plymouth Argyle when they won promotion this time last week and just had so much immense praise, really, for the way they've dealt with the setbacks they've had this season. A lot of doubts that have been put onto them. And now they're going to go up as champions, as the first team to hit 100 plus points in a League One season since Sheffield United did so in 2016-17. I mean, what more can really be said about the Pilgrims under Steven Schumacher?
Yeah, I think we've said everything there is to be said, haven't we, over the last however many months. And I'm sorry to any Ipswich fans. I know you say you weren't particularly bothered who you wanted to win the league, but I think just for that story, I mean, considering the size of the squads, the size of the budget compared to Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, even Derby, I suppose, it's brilliant to have seen the season that they've had. They've been so consistent the whole way through. Obviously, they had that blip a couple of months ago where you worried that maybe it just got a bit too much for them. But yeah, credit to Steven Schumacher in what really is his first proper managerial job as well, isn't it? So yeah, he's done brilliantly well, and yeah, fully deserved champions, and they showed that again yesterday.
They've just been absolutely phenomenal. It's incredible to think about the standard we've had with that top three this year, Harry. That third, for instance, who we'll get onto, has got 96 points, and you've got second with 98, and then third with 101. It's quite hard in some ways to think that we've had three exceptional League One sides this season and only two automatic promotion spots.
I know, yeah, and thinking about sort of a few months ago, Sheffield Wednesday seemed like the ones who were going to do it, didn't they? They went on that huge unbeaten streak, and it seemed like, it was theirs to wrap up. And like you say, they could still be playing League One football next season, and by no means would be guaranteed to get promoted next year either. I mean, you look at some of the other teams that will end up not making it out of the playoffs. I mean, the teams that are coming down, depending on the summers that they have, it's by no means going to be an easy task for whoever doesn't make it out of the playoffs this year to go up, is it? So, yeah, Plymouth and Ipswich, I think, both looking in pretty good positions right now going into the Championship. It's not going to be a case of coming straight back down, you wouldn't think. And especially this Plymouth team, just everybody does the job so well. There's not maybe the big names that you've got in the Sheffield Wednesday team and the Ipswich team, but for example, Ballymumba, the season that he's had, it's just been incredible to watch. I made a note about the run that he made in the build-up to Joe Edwards' goal. He just completely carved apart the entire Port Vale side. It's so impressive to see how much he's come on this season. Brilliant to see Adam Randell and Finazaz both back on the score sheet. Obviously, they had a bit of time out with injury, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the time where they weren't fit was when Plymouth had that bit of a wobble. They've both been so brilliant in the midfield this season and popped up with some important goals as well.
Plymouth Argyle win the title. Second place, Ipswich Town. 2-2 draw at Fleetwood Town. They initially took the lead with Freddie Ladapo. Game slipped on its head by a brace from Jack Marrett, Marcus Harness, seeing a shot deflecting for 2-2. That was before half-time. Ipswich was finished again with 10 men after substitute fullback Harry Clark was sent off the 2 yellow cards. Miss out on the title, Harry, but one thing to mention with Ipswich, that Ladapo goal means that they've now surpassed the 100 goal mark in the season, and there are not a lot of teams in professional men's football that get 100 goals in a season. It's a really good example of just how great an attacking outfit Kieran McKenna has built there.
It's so impressive, isn't it? And there's not been an over-reliance on one goal scorer. I mean, you look at those attackers, the goals are spread pretty fairly evenly across, and even sort of Leif Davis, Wes Burns, players like that who aren't sort of out-and-out attackers have been cropping up with so many goals as well. I think it's unfortunate that they didn't get the win because I think they were saying it would only be the third team in history, wouldn't it, that would have got 100-plus points and 100-plus goals. And obviously they've only just missed out on the 100 points. But yeah, what an incredible season. The attacking football's been so impressive.
Goal difference of plus 66.
I mean, that's bonkers, isn't it?
It's like Manchester City levels, that.
I think that's a higher goal difference than about half the league have scored all season, isn't it?
I think it probably is. Yeah, 101 goals scored, just 35 conceded. We mentioned this throughout the season. They really have been that perfect bracket of creating loads of opportunities, giving very little away. And as I've said before, look, coming second to Plymouth Argyle is no shame at all. You've got the Championship football. That's what you're targeted before a ball is kicked. You're going to go there. And they're going to go and enjoy it in the second tier next season. I'm certain of that.
Absolutely, they will, yeah.
Playoffs, Harry. 2 crucial games live on television. We had Barnsley against Peterborough United and Sheffield Wednesday against Derby County. That was to decide the final playoff spot, which was between Peterborough and Derby County. What I will quickly mention is the other side in the playoffs who have 5th confirmed. That's Bolton Wanderers. They won a absolutely thrilling game at Bristol Rovers 3-2. It was just loads of great opportunities, really entertaining. Bolton taking the lead for Shola Shoretire. Luca Hall getting Bristol Rovers back level. Bolton Wanderers retook the lead through Dan Ndulu. Trying to remember the goal now. Really nice low finish from the edge of the box from him. Lead doubled for them through Aaron Morley. Marcus got one back to Bristol Rovers and actually could have made this 3-3 right at the end with Scott Sinclair being fouled by Aaron Collins but putting his shot onto the bar. Threading win to Bolton nonetheless, and they are guaranteed now to play Barnsley in the playoffs, which is going to be a great tie. But we've got to put the focus on the 2 Sky games because it was the race to 6. Derby were in the prime position, 2 points ahead of Peterborough. They knew really that they had to better Peterborough United's results, and they didn't. They were beaten 1-0 at Hillsborough. Peterborough United, meanwhile, Harry, go and win 2-0 at Barnsley, at Oakwell, at a place where only Ipswich Town have actually beaten them for months now. Barnsley entered this on a really strong run of form at home, and for Peterborough to get 2 goals, one from Johnson Clark-Harris, the other from Jack Taylor, what a way to boost some confidence ahead of qualifying to playoffs.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people could have argued going into these games that even if Derby lost at Sheffield Wednesday, they would have still held that final spot because, like you say, Oakwell's such a difficult place to go. But who else than Johnson Clark-Harris? He's been absolutely fantastic. And yeah, you wouldn't want to be coming up against them in the form that they're in. I mean, obviously there was a bit of mixed opinions around bringing Darren Ferguson back is what I'll go with. And it's completely paid off, hasn't it? They've looked like such a stronger side since he came back in January. They've had this really good finish to the season. They pushed Derby all the way. And yeah, it was absolutely not a foregone conclusion that they were going to turn up at Oakwell and get anything, let alone a win. I would probably say Barnsley looked quite wasteful from what I've seen. They had a few good opportunities that were put wide, that maybe they should have at least got on target. And yeah, they're now going into the playoffs 3 matches without a win. Which isn't really where you want to be.
Does it kind of put a bit of a spanner in the works? Because I was feeling quite positive about Barnsley, and now recently I'm looking at them, I'm looking at Bolton, they're up against each other, and now I'm not so sure where that's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I had to get an audacious shout in there somewhere. I don't even know if this is that audacious, but I think whoever wins that semi-final between Barnsley and Bolton goes up this season. And I think it's going to be an incredible one to watch. Like I say, Barnsley are obviously coming into it not in the best of form. Because I think a few weeks ago, they probably seemed like the strongest case, didn't they? That win over Sheffield Wednesday, you felt at that point that they were untouchable, really. And yeah, I don't know whether it's just a case of knowing that they'd already cemented their place in the top 6 and kind of taken their foot off the gas a little bit with the playoffs in mind. But yeah, it's a hard one to call, definitely.
Potentially. I know they haven't been able to be full strength at the minute. Mads Anderson, who normally sits in the middle of their back three, has been absent for the last 2 games. So it's meant we've got to see young Barry Cotter, who's an Irish, I think naturally a fullback, but he's been playing on the right side of the back three alongside Bobby Thomas and Liam Kitching. So not to their full strength, Barnsley, but I still think that is a team that offers so much quality with the midfield three they have in particular in the front line that they do. Peterborough, Johnson Clark-Harris, a name that we talk about all the time. He's sharing the golden boot with Connor Chaplin. Both have finished on 26 goals. But I really want to give a mention to Jack Taylor, who's deployed in a number of midfield roles. He was deployed as a sort of advanced midfield role here in a 4-2-3-1 alongside Ephraim Mason-Clark and Kwame Poku. I think he's actually just a really, really underrated player in what is a fantastic attacking team.
Yeah, he's been brilliant, hasn't he? Ended on 8 goals and 5 assists, which is really impressive when you consider, like you say, he's been used as a bit of a utility man. But I think you could extend that out to the attacking 3 that have been playing behind Clark-Harris. See Ephraim Mason-Clark as well. His first season in league football, I believe, isn't it? And he's really stepped up to the mark. Kwame Poku on the other side as well, I think, has been really impressive. And yeah, it's good to have somebody like Johnson Clark-Harris who is getting that many goals, but equally not being fully reliant on him. They have got a lot of attacking strength in that front 4.
Mason-Clark is probably my favourite player in the division at the minute.
He's been so fun, watching him, hasn't he? It's always nice to see a player come out of non-league and really make a success of themselves.
Well, it's impressive because both him and Taylor were from Barnet. That's where people get them from. And they've got this knack for picking up some great players from low down the pyramid.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see whether they're in League One or in the Championship next season, which gems they pick up next.
It will, and there was great scenes at the end where they got to celebrate with their away fans because of the result that came through at Hillsborough. It was Sheffield Wednesday 1, Derby County 0. Pretty lively game. More of the opportunities for Sheffield Wednesday, but certainly David McGoldrick, Derby's star man, testing Cameron Dawson throughout this game. Dawson, I think, ultimately probably got the better of him with the saves that he makes. But it's the goal, Harry, that we need to talk about. It comes from the penalty spot. It originates from a poor back pass from Curtis Davis. It's smothered originally by Joe Wildsmith as Patterson latches onto it, but there's a loose ball where Marvin Johnson gets ahead of Curtis Davis to it, and Davis essentially tries to hold him back. And the contact for me on Johnson seems incredibly light, with the penalty given nonetheless, and Curtis Davis is then sent off for it. And let's just say Derby fans are not happy with that decision being given against them.
Yeah, I'm in 2 minds about this one. I mean, it's a very, very soft penalty, but you can only feel so sorry for Curtis Davies. He's put himself into that position, and when you're an attacker, you feel any contact in the box, especially with Wildsmith being where he is, and you're going to go down, aren't you? So He's an experienced defender.
Does he even touch him though? It feels like he just kind of holds his arm, and the reaction from Johnson to me, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? He milks it. Let's put it that way. And I don't think there's a fan of a football club out there that sees that decision given against them and is happy with it. Not a chance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's obviously then especially harsh to get the straight red in it there at the same time. I mean, if they had got that playoff spot, they'd have had to go through the entire playoffs without the captain at centre back. So, yeah, doubly painful for them. And it's a shame that obviously that's happened right at the end of the first half, and then it's kind of fizzled out from there, hasn't it? Really, I mean, it was never going to be an even contest once Davies is off, and yeah, they robbed us of a more exciting second half, I guess. But
forced the change of shape, losing Curtis Davis as well. I think they had to go to a back four when they were previously playing a back three in there, and it's. I'm conflicted now thinking about this from a direct perspective because they have missed out on playoffs on the far day. It's difficult to take. They were in a really good position, but I think it's really worth remembering when you go back to the start of the season, the actual position they were in. We were not sure if Derby County were even going to start the season. They were saved by their ownership, able to get a manager and build a team that has been competitive at the upper end of the division, but at the same time, there's undoubtedly this feeling of disappointment coming so close to playoffs on the final day and missing out.
Yeah, and I suppose the concern now is players like Curtis Davies, David McGoldrick. You wonder whether it was a case of them sticking around for a season to try and get the club back up, and they'll now be looking at offers from elsewhere. And so it's whether they can keep hold of that squad for next season to try and challenge again, I think is going to be the difficult bit.
Potentially, yeah. I think they've got a lot to build because I always felt like Derby had built a good looking first team, but maybe lacked the depth to sufficiently challenge right up at the top of the table throughout the campaign. And there were certainly periods where they looked pretty formidable under Paul Warne, and then weaker run of form towards the end of the season has ultimately proved costly for them, and they will remain in League One next season at the expense of Peterborough United. So the playoffs, Harry, Sheffield Wednesday against Peterborough United and Bolton Wanderers up against Barnsley. What a set of ties that is going to be.
I know, yeah. Yeah, good luck taking your eyes off any of those matches. Sheffield Wednesday, like we say, have been so impressive this year, but they're coming up against a Peterborough side who've got that motivation of only sneaking in on the final day. You've got the joint top scorer in the league, and then Bolton against Barnsley, just, yeah, two exciting teams. Like I say, Barnsley a bit out of form. Bolton have kind of really grown into the season, I think. And one of the things that I'd written down as well about the game is that they obviously started with two strikers up front. They took both of them off in like-for-like changes for other strikers, and they finished the game without bringing Dion Charles or Elias Kachunga on. You've got so much attacking depth in that squad, and that could really suit them, obviously, with the quick turnaround of the playoffs. So
yeah, it's really interesting because Ian never does like playing two up top, and Dion Charles has been his key man this season, his main contributor of goals. And I've always wondered who the guy to play alongside him will be when those bursts come around. I have a feeling it might be Victor Adebiejo, which would be against the club that he was released from this time last season, but it could be Dan and Ndulu, you could have Kachunga there, as you say, could be Jerome. Sport's a choice with those options.
Yeah, I've thrown my hat into the ring and said what I think is going to happen, but yeah, honestly, it could go any way, couldn't it?
Can't wait. We will be producing our League One playoff preview later this week. The games start on Friday. It's a really quick turnaround, starting off with Peterborough United against Sheffield Wednesday on Friday night at London Road. We will have a League One playoff preview put together for you, featuring insight from fans of all four clubs. That will be aiming to come with you this Thursday. Cannot wait to dive into that and get a proper look at the playoffs that we've got coming up in League One. Right, Harry, bottom of the table. Oh, this was just carnage. Ahead of the final day, we had only one relegation spot confirmed, obviously, Forest Green Rovers a long time ago. So there were 3 spots left available, and 3 of 4 teams were going to end up in there. We always kind of felt Accrington and Stanley were going to end up in there, given they needed such a massive win over Oxford to have any chance. So you're essentially looking at 2 relegation spots between 3 teams, and those teams were Milton Keynes Dons, Morecambe, and Cambridge United. And the one that have stayed up was the team that started the lowest of the 3 at the start of the day in Cambridge United. They beat Forest Green Rovers 2-0 at the Abbey Stadium. We talked about this relegation conversation last week, James and I did. Cambridge had a absolutely enormous opportunity on Wednesday before the final day of the season, away at the Pirelli Stadium against the Burton Albion side whose season was done. Lost at 1-0. A really frustrating result for Cambridge, and I think there were some Hughes fans at that moment who maybe thought, is that it? It's out of our hands now. We've got to rely on other results alongside our own. They could have got into a position where everything was in their own hands but didn't take it. But then you looked at the final day fixtures, and there could be no doubt that playing away at home to Forest Green Rovers, who are rock bottom of the division, they had the most favourable game on paper. They had the best chance of winning. And with goals from Harrison Dunk and Sam Smith, Julie went and got the victory.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't already, Harrison Dunk deserves keys to the city of Cambridge, doesn't he? He's scored some important goals in the last few weeks to keep them up. And yeah, like you say, I think it was a game that you probably would have expected them to win, but they still had to go and win, didn't they? Still had to find the motivation to do so. And also, those of you who haven't seen it, Sam Smith's goal to make it 2-0.
We call him Marco van Smith now, by the way. People of a certain age will know what I mean when I mention Marco van Basten. It's obviously that Euro 88 final goal against the Soviet Union, that volley. It's so similar to it. Unbelievable technique. Remember, he's a left-footed player as well, Harry. That's with his right foot.
I know. What an incredible hit. And also, how incredible that he didn't score it against Burton in midweek. And they saved it for this weekend instead.
Oh, MK Dons and Morgan fans loved that save from Jordan Mesa, and it ended up not even costing them. What a brilliant recovery for Cambridge. And it's remarkable, really, when I think about it, because you look back on Cambridge's season, they fell into the bottom four, Harry, in the middle of January during a torrid run of form, looked completely out of it for the next couple of months, and then April comes around, and they suddenly just recover from nowhere. Great wins, crucial victories. There was a 2-0 win over Peterborough United in that time. And from a period where they seemingly looked dead and buried, they've gone and secured a third straight season in League One. Incredible.
Yeah, I think they were 7 points gone at one point.
Weren't
they really seemed like they were guaranteed to be going down. And considering they're not the only team that have had a late rush of form, it's ridiculously impressive. And credit as well to Cambridge for sticking with Mark Bonner and giving him the chance to see out the season, because he's fully repaid that, hasn't he, by keeping them up.
It just makes complete sense to keep hold of him, really. His affinity towards the side. And you go back to the start of April to see the results. On April 1st, they go and win 2-0 at Port Vale. They followed up with a 2-1 win at Fleetwood Town. Get a late 1-1 draw at Bolton Wanderers with a 95th minute equaliser. Get that 2-0 win over Peterborough United. Suffer defeats to Wickham and Plymouth, but beat Accrington in the crucial game. That 1-0 loss to Burton. And then this 2-0 win over Forest Green Rovers on the final day, which, coupled with those results, has seen them over the line. 7 goals and 9 to Sam Smith. Woken up at the perfect time.
Yeah, it really did. The main talking point in this game was Cambridge, but I suppose it is worth giving Forest Green a mention. Just in that, yeah, they go down with a single win under Duncan Ferguson. That's their only win since the 10th of December. And their top scorer in the league, Connor Wickham, got 6 goals and left in January. So
he had a short-term contract, and I can't remember if he decided to not renew it or whether it was the club's choice, but it looks an odd decision. And Forest Green Rovers, Harry, they are the worst team we've seen in League One for some time now. 27 points in 46 games. It's the lowest we've seen from a third-tier team since Stockport got 25 back in 09-10. And Stockport had some big issues to them, which is part of the reason that they had that terrible season. There was an awful Crew team last year that got more points than this Forest Green one did. 7 points since the turn of the year. Single win.
It's just woeful, isn't it? And I think the thing that concerns me the most is the players that have been able to hold their heads high since January are the ones that have come in on loan for the most part. The core of the squad next year doesn't fill me with a lot of hope, even coming back into League Two. So, yeah, big summer.
I wanted to start building some confidence in them about maybe pursuing the top end of League Two again, building towards it. But I'll tell you what, I'm not convinced at all with Duncan Ferguson. I'm not convinced at all with these group of players. They've got a lot of people to win over next year, because this has been a truly awful season. And for the sake of the fans of the club, we won't mention who that win was against.
I'm sure it didn't have any impact.
It's just ridiculous to think that they've been this awful, and that one win is against the team that was top of the table at the time.
I know, it seems to be the curse of the televised match for Sheffield Wednesday, didn't it, at that point?
Just bizarre. Going down with a minus 58 goal difference. 31 scored, 89 conceded, 27 points from 46 games. Truly awful. Rock bottom of the division, 17 points behind 23rd. An awful campaign for Forest Green Rovers and the steepest of learning curves in their debut third tier season. Going down with Forest Green Rovers, with Cambridge staying up, are three teams: Milton Keynes Dons, Morecambe and Accrington Stanley. Let's touch on MK Dons first, Harry, who finished 21st in the table. They were away at Burton Albion. It was a game I was at the Pirelli Stadium. Drew 0-0 with them. They should never have drawn 0-0. They were knocking throughout this game, utterly dominant. They knew, really, that with the situation they were in, a win would have been enough. Even with Cambridge's victory, a win would have taken them over the line, but with the points needed. And they kept knocking throughout, and they were just met by this really resolute defensive Burton display. Really good performance from Craig McGillivray, good performance from the back three in front of him. And it was weird to watch, Harry, because Burton had no need to get that clean sheet. And I kind of felt as the game progressed, I was looking at it thinking, surely at some point they just say, do you know what, have the goal because you need it. We're not really that bothered about conceding. But they were so determined to deal with everything that came their way. And as anyone has seen a clip at the end, they had the goalkeeper up, Jamie, coming up for a corner right at the end of the match, and it led to a goal line scramble and some real bodies on the line from Burton. And it was bizarre to watch, seeing a team that was mid-table, had nothing to play for, so desperate to pick up a clean sheet.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of felt the same on Wednesday as well with that win over Cambridge. It's almost as though they were just playing. Well, I mean, obviously you've got to remain professional through all your games, but it was almost like they were relishing the fact that decisions were being made with who went up and who stayed up and who went down based on their results. And I think I'm sure you feel the same as a Burton fan. It shows a lot of positivity going into next season. These aren't players that realised they were safe and were just seeing out the end of the season. These are players who are trying to prove themselves for next year to an exciting manager, part of a team that has been really good fun to watch over the last few months. And it's a shame that neither side.
I wouldn't say fun's the word. Tense has probably been the word I've used more often to Burton this season.
Fun for a neutral.
Okay, I'll have that.
But yeah, it was good to see, and obviously it's never nice to see a team go down, but to have, I think it was 31 shots in the game, wasn't it, and come away without scoring, you can't blame that on anybody but yourselves, really. And I mean, their form in the early half of the season is ultimately what's cost them. But I mean, they've sort of gone down with a whimper, 4 points from the final 8 games.
I will admit it, I have no idea how this has happened. There isn't a season in the EFL that stumped me more than the one that MK Dons have had. Because you go back to last summer, they had a brilliant team that just missed out on automatic promotion on the final day, went into the playoffs, beaten over 2 legs ultimately by Wycombe Wanderers, who ended up making it to the playoff final. And yes, they lost some of that talent. You're always going to lose a player like Scott Twine after the season he'd had, lose Harry Darling from the back line. But I remember seeing the players come in. I had a lot of confidence in the team behind the scenes, in their choice of recruitment, believing that they'd stay up there again. They'd replace what they had in the Accrington and go again. I never ever thought I would see this level of regression from Milton Keynes Dons. It's just absolutely ridiculous. They have gone from 3rd to 21st in 12 months, Harry. It's a staggering decline. And I was looking at that team yesterday who were playing really well, playing really front-footed, looking at the squad list, and I wonder, do I maybe overrate them? Because I was looking at that team yesterday, I was convincing myself this cannot be a team that's about to play League 2 football. Yeah,
I suppose the only thing is, it felt like, yes, they'd lost Twine and Darling, but it wasn't like the entire side had been dismantled. But I suppose looking back on it, you wonder whether it was just a case of those 2 players being so good for the level that they carried what wasn't a great squad otherwise.
I find that really hard to believe, though. I'm just not buying it. I look at people. Mo Issa's such a good player. He's such a great talent. Leko can have his moments of quality. Paris Makoma, who's playing in midfield, was excellent. Really great front foot. I love the way he carried the ball through midfield. Jack Tucker, who's previously been great with Gillingham. Warren O'Hara who's been great in the past. Dean Lewington, who's just an evergreen player on the left side of the fence. Jamie Cummings was one of the best goalkeepers in the league last season. Great for his playing out the back as well as his shot stopping. Something has just gone really, really badly wrong this year, and I don't think I'll ever work out what it is.
Yeah, completely agreed. Because I mean, when they got rid of Liam Manning, the only thing you thought is maybe it's the tactics that aren't working out. But Mark Jackson's come in and things changed a little bit, but they haven't changed enough. It's something to do with the players. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think it's a bad squad, and when I've seen them play, I don't think they've played that badly. And I mean, I suppose you look at the stats as well. They've only conceded 66 goals, which is 11 less than than Accrington, who are going down with them. They only scored 44, which isn't loads, but it's more than Cambridge. It's only one less than Cheltenham, for example. So there's not any real obvious outliers either. It's just, yeah, not worked for whatever reason.
There's been a lot of killers, I suppose, when you look through the statistics on them. Their home record, for instance, 19 points from 23. It's only Forest Green that had it worse. 20 goals scored at home. It's bizarre. I really am truly stumped by the season that Milton Keynes Dons have had, and they're going to be playing League Two, and I do not understand how this regression has come, but I suppose you can't really isolate it down to one moment. I was kind of looking at last weekend when you had that game with Barnsley and they were 4-1 up and ended up drawing 4-4, and whether that was the killer, but there's so many moments across the season. It's always quite hard isolating down an individual moment as the reason for how your season ends up.
Yeah, especially one as baffling as this. And I think I said to you the other day, this is the team that I'm going to find it hardest to predict next season. Going the way it's gone this season, I have absolutely no idea what they're going to do in League Two next year.
Well, I've seen some clips. Right understandably, fans are not happy with Peter Winkelman, the owner. There was a bit of an altercation between him and some fans outside the Pirelli Stadium yesterday in the Burton car park, and he was just having... Well, it just seemed like someone who'd lost his head, quite frankly, listening to him talking. Not good.
Yeah, it's never nice to see, is it?
No, not good at all. And yeah, it'd be intriguing to see what happens with MK Doncic here. It'd be intriguing to see if Mark Jackson stays, because I don't think he's been able to do too much so far to really sell himself as the right person to take him forwards. And a goalless draw at the Pirelli Stadium yesterday has ultimately cost Milton Keynes Dons their place in League One next year. Going down with them, Harry, are Morecambe. They were away at Exeter City yesterday down at St James Park, lost 3-2. I want to start by mentioning the hosts, because we've got to mention this lovely story that's come out. All three of Exeter City's goals scored by Jay Stansfield, who has spent the season on loan from Fulham. He's had a very good loan spell. He is, of course, the son of Adam Stansfield, who is an Exeter City icon, part of a really successful team in the 2000s. Passed away following cancer in 2010. The club have paid great tribute to him in the time since. There is a stand along one side of the pitch that is named after Adam Stansfield. The number 9 shirt that he wore for Exeter City was retired for a long time and has since come out of retirement and is given exclusively to products of the Exeter Academy. Jay has been wearing his number 9 shirt this season, originally from the Exeter Academy, got bought by Fulham when he was still a youngster. And the hat-trick yesterday, 3 great goals, all right next to Adam Stansfield's stand. And I just want to mention this tweet that came from the Exeter City Twitter account, which I think just sums up his hat-trick goal just perfectly. 70. Not a dry eye in the house, including Jay himself. Key races down the right and finds Stano waiting in the area to fire home. It's straight to the Stansfield stand again, where he points up to his dad's name. Oh, Jay, he'd be so proud of you. Just what a beautiful way to end the season for him and his boyhood club. It is amazing sometimes how football just manages to fall perfectly into place.
Yeah, these storylines just end up writing themselves, don't they? And he seems like such a nice guy, such a good player. And yeah, it was the perfect end to his loan spell. And I'm sure that most of the Exeter fans and potentially a lot of neutrals would agree with me here in saying that I would love to see him go back there next year. Go back on loan. I mean, he looks like his ceiling is probably higher than League One level, but
absolutely,
the year that he's had with Exeter, sending him back for another year of guaranteed first team football, becoming even more cemented in Exeter folklore, I guess. It's one of those stories that you can maybe see happening, can't you? And yeah, I really hope that it does, because he's been brilliant to watch, and like you say, what a poignant end to his season.
It is. I'd love to see him back, but there's also, I think, a very good understanding that he could well be in the Championship next year on a loan deal. He might well be playing a kind of understudy part for Fulham, his parent club in the time. And there's one thing also I do want to mention about Stansfield for you, Harry. His dad, Adam Stansfield, got one hat-trick in his senior career. Do you know who it was against?
Don't tell me it was
It
Morecambe.
was Morecambe. How perfect does this sport get? Absolutely amazing. What brilliant. And he's got 9 extra goals in his loan spell as well, with the number 9 on his back.
Yeah, a handful of assists as well, I think, in a team that's not exactly been prolific, has it? So
Been a great player in a team that's enjoyed a very good return to League One. The visitors, though, obviously beaten 3-2. It's cost them their relegation. Both of Morecambe's goals, of course, came to their own number 9, Cole Stockton. His first came with Exeter originally winning 1-0. It's a real mess up at the back. Lack of communication between Jamal Blackman and Will Aimson, and he just steals in to win the header from the ball forwards. He gets his second very deep into stoppage time. I've got it down here, Harry, as being 90 plus 14 when he scores the goal. There was a lot of stoppage time added. I can't work out what for. For some reason it was given. I don't know if one of these trying to tempt fate of getting Morecambe back into the game, but they ended up losing 3-2. They needed the win. The victory would have got them over the line, but the defeat sends Morecambe down to League Two, and I'm quite sad about it. You know, I've been quite a big backer of Morecambe throughout this entire season. I believed in them from the start. They are the underdog of all underdogs at this level, and there are some big underdogs at this level, but they've been the underdog of the lot. It's been a team that traditionally has been finding themselves competing down the bottom end of League Two, trying to avoid falling out of the Football League. Enjoyed a great season a few years back at the Derek Adams where they won promotion to the playoffs. I've come into League One as the big underdog again. Did brilliantly to survive last season, and even to take this campaign down to the final day for their survival. There's no shame in Morecambe going down this season.
yeah, I think they can hold their heads high. Like you say, they've definitely been punching above their weight over the last few years in terms of the size of the club and the investment that's gone into it. And I think it's worth remembering. I think at the start of the season, the club was put up for sale, wasn't it? That again, they've been playing under this uncertainty, and yeah, pushed it right to the wire. And you really felt going into these matches that Morecambe were the ones who were going to do it. I was so convinced that they were going to beat Exeter and be the ones that stayed up. Just again to rewrite that story that they had last year where they pulled off the great escape. And unfortunately, it was one game too much, wasn't it? I don't think you can necessarily pin it on this match. But yeah, they've been entertaining this year. I think if I'm being,
They made my life miserable on New Year's Day.
yeah,
I've finally got some redemption for that.
I think at that point, if you said that was going to be, they were going to be one of the 4 sides that went down, you'd have had a bit of pushback, wouldn't you? But yeah, one of the things that's frustrated me a bit is obviously Cole Stockton's scored 7 goals in the last 4 games. He only scored 11 all season. He had that brilliant goal scoring season last year. The end of this season's shown that it clearly wasn't a fluke, and he's got that ability. And you wonder what it was that was holding him back. And if he had that extra level that he's pulled himself up to for these final 4 games, where was that for the other 42? I think at the back things haven't necessarily always worked out. And obviously losing Phillips in January was a big loss for them as well. But yeah, I'm sure they'll be back.
I hope so. I think what Morecambe needs to prioritise is sorting out the situation off the field. They are in not the greatest state at the minute, some ownership issues. If they get those sorted, I do believe they have got it in them to go and push back for a place in League One next season, because League Two is a division where if you sort yourselves out, get your recruitment right, as we've seen with plenty of clubs, you can get yourself pushing up towards the upper end of the division, no matter what size of clubs you are. And I hope they do that. And I mentioned a couple of the stars. You've touched on Cole Stockton, but Connor Ripley has been so good in goal this season. He's one of those that I really do actually want to see stay in League One next season. I think there should be other clubs that are going after a goalkeeper like him. Brilliant season.
Definitely. I wouldn't even be surprised to see him jump up a level into the Championship. I think he's that good, and yeah, could easily have gone forward for goalkeeper of the year in the league. He's unsurprisingly just won Morecambe's Player of the Season award.
That's not a shock. Although you don't really want your goalkeeper winning Player of the Season, do you? It's kind of a sign of the season that you've had, but no doubt my mind, he is also deserving of it.
Yeah, I suppose if they'd stayed up and he'd won Player of the Year, it softens the blow a bit, doesn't it? But yeah, probably doesn't say a huge amount for the outfield players.
Jensen Weir had some great impact on loan from Brighton and Hove Albion in midfield. Likewise, Liam Shaw on loan from Celtic. Some good players in there that I hope some others can pick up, and a couple I'd like to see stay in League One as well, particularly Ripley and Stockton. Morecambe, though, first relegation confirmed in their history. They will be back in League Two next season. And the other team down with them, Harry, are sadly Accrington Stanley. They needed the miracle of all miracles on the final day, not only for everyone else above them to lose, but they also needed to basically thrash Oxford by a rugby score, even a cricket score, to have a chance, and it was never going to happen. They did beat Oxford, though, 2-1. They were initially behind to Billy Bowden. Their equaliser was an absolute beauty of a shot, Corey Adedeyin from the edge of the box. Brilliant low hit. And then they got the winner, which came from a ball in from Jack Nolan, the most audacious backheel flick from Sean Wally to send it deeper into the box. And there's Aaron Presley in the right place to dive onto it and head it into the net to give Stanley something to enjoy at the end of the season, even though the relegation was sadly confirmed at the same time.
Yeah, I think those fans that travelled all the way down to Oxford definitely deserve that. It's been a tricky season for them, hasn't it? I mean, they've had injury issues. They've been dealing with one of the smallest squads in the league as it is. And yeah, I think we knew going into the weekend that they were as good as down already, weren't they? But I think they're one of the teams who are going down maybe not in the worst position, and it might do them some good to have a season back in League Two where they can hopefully try and get themselves up at the top end of the table. It's been nice to see Aaron Presley have what I've considered a successful loan spell. I mean, he didn't come in with very high plaudits, did he, after his loan spell at Wimbledon last year? But I think he finished on 6 goals, some of them pretty important goals as well. And yeah, I think they'll be all right. I think as well with Oxford, obviously they've got away with it. I think it was last weekend, wasn't it, when it was officially confirmed that they were safe. But again, this result shows that a lot of work needs to be done. Liam Manning needs to be trusted to build his own squad in the summer. I think they need quite a significant clear out and to just start again, because yeah, it's really not worked out for them, and losing to a team that's as good as relegated on the last day is not a great sign.
No, they did create a lot of opportunities. I've got the XG down here as 2.79 for Oxford and 0.7 for Accrington. So you can't say they didn't test them, but beating on the day. And yeah, I think Oxford will be relieved more than anything else. I think it's my understanding that they might well actually have a very competitive budget next season, so they might well be able to take themselves away from any trouble. And the thought of what could be built under Liam Manning, which saw with Emke Dons this time last season, could be hopefully some optimism for Oxford going forwards, and the progression with their stadium being built as well. Shame about Stanley to drop. 5 years they've had in League One. They've been one of the underdogs at the level. Recorded some fantastic finishes in that time, and part of the Stanley magic for the last 5 years in League One has been John Coleman's ability to just pick up these absolute gems from the non-league system that other players aren't looking for. You look up on the top scorer charts, for instance, this season. You see people like Dion Charles up there and Colby Bishop. They were both bought from Accrington from National League North clubs, developed by them, turned into these stars, bought by some of the bigger boys in the division. And Accrington just sadly haven't been able to find those gems to the same level this year. I've liked the performances of Tommy Lee when I've been able to see him, but injury problems for him, injury problems to Joe Pritchard, mixed performances from Sean McConville out of natural positions, that awful discipline record that they had through a lot of 2023 and injury problems on top of that. It's just all added up, sadly, to a season where their tenure at League One has come to an end, Harry.
Yeah, I think, like you say, the killer for them really was that discipline record. They've had to play with a different defence every single week because somebody's been sent off in the game before. And yeah, one thing that I do hope is that this, and I think that they will, is that they stick with John Coleman, and he's the reason that they're up where they are. And like you say, he's got that talent for finding those players. And so, yeah, it could be a completely different starting 11 next year with players that are maybe going under the radar at the minute in non-league who could, have a brilliant season in League Two. And like I said, I think they've done impressively in League One, especially staying for those 5 years, like you say. But I do think sometimes it's good to go back down a level and just have a bit of a confidence building season. If he can build a good squad and they can push for promotion, it brings that belief and that confidence back. Whereas sort of just about avoiding relegation every year, it sort of, it does tire you out, doesn't it? And then there's only so many years in a row that you can do it. So yeah, hopefully a bit of a reset and an exciting season to come for Accrington Stanley next year.
3 more games to mention from the League One final day. Plenty of goals in them. Cheltenham Town 2, Charlton Athletic 2 was another brilliant game. Scott Fraser got Charlton into the lead in the first half where they had plenty of big chances but didn't take them. Cheltenham's equaliser came in the second half from Aidan Keener on the rebound. There was a lot more action before Charlton would regain the lead through substitute Jack Payne, who stole possession to score. Cheltenham got level though. Who else, Harry? Alfie May. If that is the last time we see Alfie May in a Cheltenham shirt, what a way to go out. 2 consecutive 20-plus goal seasons in League One. What an icon he has been for the Robins. I am absolutely fascinated to see where he ends up come the start of next season, because he is just an absolutely quality centre-forward.
He's been brilliant for them, hasn't he? And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he's the reason they'll be playing League One football next year. And the thing about it as well, he's scored 20 goals. They've not been 20 tap-ins, have they? He's been having his own goal of the season competition. The one that he scored yesterday against Charlton was brilliant. The control and then to hit it in from outside the box on the volley. And sadly, it does look like, from what he's been saying in the press and from his celebration for that goal, that he is going to be moving on. And you can understand why. And I'm sure that Cheltenham fans will wish him the best wherever he does end up, because he deserves to be playing at least top half League One, if not above. And he's in his late 20s, I think, isn't he? 29, maybe. This is probably his last chance to get a big move somewhere. So you can't begrudge him for it. But what a season he's had. And I think as well, obviously he's gone under the radar a little bit with how well Alfie May's played, but I really like the look of Aidan Keener.
I'm glad you said this, yeah.
Since they signed in January. And if they can keep hold of him, then I think they'll be all right next year. He seems like, if not a like-for-like replacement, at least a pretty natural replacement in terms of being someone you can rely on to pick up those goals. And it's a shame because they've been building up a really good partnership. It seems every week at the minute, one of them's assisting the other one to score. So, yeah, I hope they can find somebody to come in alongside Keener next year and build around him, because he looks really exciting.
Well, I've seen someone tempt the idea of getting Mo Issa back now that he's gone down with them Kidons. And Issa and Keener would be quite fun if that was to happen.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout at all.
It wouldn't be, but if that is Alfie May's last game for Cheltenham, what a way to go out. Excited with the growth of Aidan Keener, give him a bit of rest, having come over from Ireland during the winter window. Another season of League One football for Cheltenham Town. Mentioned to Luke Southwood actually in goal, who's been very good on loan from Reading for them. A great season for the Robins, who end up in the middle of the table. Portsmouth 2, Wycombe Wanderers 2 at Stratton Park. The opener for Gareth McCleary for Wycombe. Marlon Pack equalised from a corner. Wycombe second, Lewis Wing. Wow.
I know.
They call him Lewis Ping for a reason.
I think some of the goals that we've already mentioned in this recording, the fact that none of them were the goal of the weekend is all you need to say to show how good Lewis Wing's goal was. The technique on it was incredible. And again, he's another one. He doesn't score tap-ins, does he?
Not far from it, no. I've recognised him doing that, I think since his days at Middlesbrough. He's a quality player and he's had a good output to them at the base of midfield as well. Paddy Lane equalising for Portsmouth at the far post. Their entertaining game at Stratton Park. And it finished Lincoln City 1, Shrewsbury Town 0 at Sincil Bank. Lincoln's winner, a long throw that dropped away Matty Virtue. Shrewsbury had another red card. Che Dunkley sent off late into the game, but Max Sanders' penalty saved by Marco Morosi. Bit of an interesting situation coming out of Shrewsbury at the minute. They've not been in good form. There's situations away from the pitch, people stepping aside, moving away from the club. Sounds like Steve Cotterill's not entirely sure if he's going to be there into next season either. So could be an intriguing summer to follow for Salop at the moment.
Yeah, he'd be a big loss, wouldn't he? I mean, he's done so well with what he's had available to him. Again,
top half finish is really good to Shrewsbury.
Yeah, and dealing with such a small squad when you consider the amount of injuries that he's had to deal with. And it is a shame, isn't it? You see it happening to so many clubs. All this moving around behind the scenes, it creates unrest. And if you end up losing a good manager like Steve Cotterill, I just hope that they don't end up regressing that if he does move on.
I would hope not, but I'm very intrigued to see what happens to sell up now as this summer progresses and next season gets underway. But we'll run through the full League One table to wrap up 22-23 for this section. Plymouth Argyle champions, 101 points in first place. Ipswich Town second on 98. Sheffield Wednesday are third on 96. Barnsley fourth on 86. Bolton Wanderers fifth on 81. Peterborough United are sixth on 77 to wrap up the playoff places. Derby County seventh on 76. Portsmouth eighth on 70. Wycombe Wanderers 9th on 69, Charlton Athletic 10th on 62, Lincoln City 11th on 62, Shrewsbury Town 12th on 59, Fleetwood Town 13th, 58, Exeter City 14th, 56, Burton Albion 15th, 56, Cheltenham Town 16th on 54, Bristol Rovers 17th on 53, Port Vale 18th on 49, Oxford United 19th on 47, Cambridge United 20th on 46, Milton Keynes Dons 21st on 45, Morecambe 22nd on 44, Accrington Stanley 23rd on 44, and Forest Green Rovers 24th on 27. We've wrapped up League One. Let's drop down and wrap up the final day in the world's best fourth tier.
League Two.
League Two, all the focus up at the top on the final day to this one, Harry. A final day that finished not long after we started this recording. The big talking point was probably with the automatic promotion conversation. We had a two-team dogfight for it, one involving Northampton Town, the other involving Stockport County. You were there at Prenton Park, knowing that if Northampton Town won the game, then regardless of what Stockport County did, they would be promoted to League One, and they duly did win the game by a single goal to nil.
Yeah, they did the business. They got the goal early.
What a goal, by the way.
An absolute cracker of a finish. Yeah, it was. I was sat behind the goal, and yeah, the technique on it was perfect, and it was never going to be anybody other than Sam Hoskins, was it, to score that goal. And then, yeah, they got the goal and just saw the game out. They didn't have to do anything particularly exciting. They defended pretty well for the most part. They were helped by the fact that Tranmere couldn't score if they hadn't come back out for the second half. And yeah, I think on the balance of things, they fully deserved that automatic promotion spot. And given the way things went almost a year ago to the day for Northampton, when Bristol Rovers ended up usurping them and going up, it's been good to see them go up, and it's just a shame that it had to happen at Prenton Park.
I remember being at Prenton Park when Bury won promotion at yours in 18-19.
Yeah, it seems
I was
to become
at that game when Ryan Lowe's Bury went up. That was the last promotion they got, obviously, before they got kicked out of the league and ceased to exist. And I think they have come back now, Bury, which is great to see. But Northampton, yeah, a fantastic result. I was listening to the soccer special on Sky, and I think Paul Merson was the one covering the game. And he was mentioning this thought that there might have been a couple of penalty incidents potentially. Harry, an incident, for instance, where Ryan Haynes went in quite late on Leo Connor in the box.
Yeah, there were definitely a few shouts. I think there were a lot of free kicks as well that weren't given. It was interesting refereeing. I try not to be too critical of referees.
The perception I got is that Tranmere kind of had possession around the final third, but didn't put much on target or towards goal.
Yeah, there were a lot of flashes across goal that didn't quite meet a boot or a cross into the box that was too deep, and then, yeah, like you mentioned, a couple of penalty shouts that did seem pretty like they should have been penalties from where I was sat at least. And there was one frustrating moment as well with Josh Hawkes running into the box, and you thought he was just going to shoot, and then he cut onto his right foot, and I thought, okay, now he's going to shoot, and then he cut back onto his left foot, tried to take on another man, and ended up losing the ball. And obviously, I'd like to mostly talk about Northampton, but I think the match kind of summed up Tranmere's season, really. Defended pretty well, apart from not closing down Sam Hoskins for the opener, but just didn't have enough in attack, unfortunately, and Lee Burge didn't have to make a single save all game.
Northampton Town, I'm just so pleased for them. I really am. We touched on it before. You go back 12 months and it was heartbreak. And I think some people have this idea that they threw promotion away from a good position. They did everything that was needed last year up at Barrow. They got that 3-1 win. They were just on the wrong side of this historic moment that happened between Bristol Rovers and Scunthorpe United at the Mem, and some people might look at that goal that Barrow scored and say that's what cost them, but the way Bristol Rovers were playing that day, I remember it clearly, If they needed 10 goals, they would have got 10 goals. They got their 7th with plenty of time to spare. It was just being on the wrong side of history for Northampton, and the way they have bounced back this season after missing out in the playoffs, losing their tie to Mansfield Town, recovered again. They built another fine team, and John Brady has really had to overcome a lot of setbacks. The injury list that Northampton Town have has been quite frankly ridiculous a lot of the season. They've been having to stitch a team together sometimes to go out to games, play players out of their natural positions, put in a lot of young defenders. David Norman probably, I don't think, would have signed for Northampton Town had they not suffered the injuries they've had in the back line. So to assemble this team and to have them challenging promotion throughout the campaign and getting over the line on the final day, it's a really pleasing moment for Brady and his Cobblers team.
Yeah, it's been great to see, and I've been championing them for a while. I think they've just gone about things very efficiently, very professionally. There's never really been a point in the season where I doubted them and thought they were in big trouble. And yeah, every setback that's come their way, they've overcome it well. Sorry, Bradford fans, but I think Sam Hoskins probably did deserve his player of the season.
You're not opening this can of worms, are you?
I mean, it's one of those cases where it's a shame it couldn't be shared between two players because, yeah, Sam Hoskins has been brilliant on that wing, and he was again today. I think Mitch Pinnock's been so good in the midfield for them. John Guthrie, obviously, such an important player for them. And
hasn't been able to play the last 2 games, Guthrie. So it's been sharing at the back alongside Max Deitch, who's been one of the young stars to mention, 20-year-old centre-back. Harvey Lintot's had to play a lot of games at right-back, probably more than you would have naturally expected him to, with them being without players like Aaron McGowan or Ekinod Mayo. Aaron Haynes likewise on the left-hand side. The midfield, a very young midfield at the moment. Ben Fox has been in and out with injuries, problems. Sean McWilliams likewise, but he's been able to play recently. Mark Leonard has been so good on loan from Brighton Hove Albion this season. They've called him the lower league Pirlo for a reason. His passing range is fantastic. And then the contribution to someone like Kieran Bowie as well, who's been playing out on the left or up top on loan from Fulham. And then Louis Perry leading the line. Really good team, even when they're not full strength.
Yeah, it's just one of those that's nice and evenly spread, isn't it? There's not an obvious weak link in there anywhere.
I would certainly have to agree with that. Northampton Town back up to League One. I think I saw from a BBC Sports stat, it's the 9th time they've won 4th tier promotion, Northampton Town.
Blimey.
In the history of the 4th tier, and more than anyone else. So, Cobblestone have got used to it over the generation, so we put it that way.
Yeah, although I'm sure they'd be happy if it's a while before they have to get promoted out of League.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah.
They'll want to survive in League One next year, and it's going to be a fun League One next year. We've got 3 great teams coming up. Stevenage are going up with them, Leyton Orient are going up. We're going to find out the playoffs in the next couple of weeks, and I think they'll feel quite confident next year because it feels like a very open League One next season. We're going to lose some good sides at the top, some poor sides at the bottom, a lot of competition in the middle of that table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick mention on Tranmere while you're here, actually. During the week, Ian Dawes promoted from his caretaker role into the permanent role. We've seen Sir Neil Dans come in as an assistant. Nigel Adkins has come into the backroom staff. Are you carrying some confidence into next season for the Super White Army?
I wasn't until the Adkins announcement. I mean, Dawes, I think, won 2 out of 8 in his time as caretaker this time around. So that included blowing a 2-goal lead at Scotland against Rochdale. So people rightly weren't overly excited by that one. Then Neil Dans was announced. He's just won the league with Macclesfield as manager there. So he's coming in inexperienced, but he obviously knows his stuff. So I thought I'll reserve judgment on that. And then, yeah, Nigel Adkins announced as technical director yesterday was a pretty exciting one. And it'll be interesting to see how much involvement he has with that. I'm a bit curious as to why he hasn't just taken the manager's job. And so it'll be trying to work out whether Ian Dawes is a first team coach or whether he's the manager and he's got Nigel Adkins helping him out, or whether Nigel Adkins is technically the manager, but he won't be the man in front of the camera at the end of the game. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic going into next year. Definitely more than I was this time last week.
Northampton Town win at Prenton Park, and they were able to celebrate early, of course, because of the result that came through at Edgeley Park. It was Stockport County 1, Hartlepool United 1. Stockport were knocking throughout this game. They knew they needed to win to have a chance at promotion. They were relying on that victory and Northampton dropping points. Their goal difference is better than the Cobblers, so they knew if they got the win and Northampton failed to win, they would be over the line in that third place, competing in late recovery. They took the lead through a Callum Camps penalty. He fired that into the top corner. Really good spot kick from him. But then got a bit of a sucker punch. Callum Cook, the Hartlepool midfielder, equalising with a very nice hit from the edge of the box into the inside of the net. The other problem with Stockport was the Hartlepool goalkeeper, Ben Killip, who had an absolutely stunning game, Harry. And there's no better summary of how good a game he had than the XG numbers. Stockport County did 3.56 XG to Hartlepool's 0.51.
Wow.
That's how good Killip was. Killip had an absolutely stunning game. And to top it all off, Stockport actually could have taken the lead in this game again because they won another penalty. It was a corner. Paddy Madden at the back post heading it onto the hand of a Hartlepool player. Camp stepping up again deep into stoppage time, but his penalty saved by Killip. What a great performance from Killip in what I believe is actually going to be his last game with the Pools now.
And it was his first game since January, wasn't it?
It was, yes. The Arctic's been preferred to him recently.
So yeah, even more impressive coming in, having not played for a few months. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see where he's off to. Is it just a case of his contract ending? And
I believe so. I'm curious to see quite a lot of these Hartlepool players are, because I think there's some who have down tools these last couple of weeks, believing that they don't want to be playing part in a relegated side anymore, which is not really an encouraging sight to see.
Yeah, it does feel like it a bit. And I think what's frustrated me as well is they've got 4 points from the last 2 games when they knew they were already relegated. And it does frustrate me quite a lot when teams do that. It feels like, I don't know if they were holding back or whether without that added pressure, they're able to just play at another level. But if you were a Hartlepool fan, you'd be wondering where this performance was 3 weeks ago when they were losing 3 matches in a row.
I think you potentially would. Yep. The playoffs of Stockport. Joining them are going to be, well, it was going to be 3 from 4 sides. It was the prime position for Carlisle United, Bradford City and Salford City. They all needed a point to confirm their spot, relying on the fact that Mansfield Town were away at Colchester United and had to win, ideally by a big margin to complete a goal swing. The points came for both Carlisle United and Bradford City. Carlisle drew 1-1 at Sutton United, initially fell behind to one of Sutton's own youngsters, Killian Kouassi. Got back level though with a long throw that ended up going in off defender Joe Kitsey to take a point for Carlisle down at Gander Green Lane. There was a really big Carlisle crowd that made their way down to London, by the way, for a 12:30 kickoff, so huge props to them for that. But talking about crowds, Harry, more than 22,500 at Valley Parade for Bradford City 1, Leyton Orient 1. That is a bigger attendance than Bradford City used to get in the Premier League.
It's incredible, isn't it? And especially when you consider, it wasn't quite mathematically confirmed, but they knew that they were going to be as good as in the playoffs already, and a lot of those fans will be forking out for another ticket in a few days' time for their playoff semi-final leg. It is really impressive, and it's something that we've spoken about a lot before, and I know Bradford fans speak about it all the time. You just wonder, with crowds that size, why they can't sort of bring themselves up to that level to get promotion. And yeah, you'd hope this time around making the playoffs that this might be the year.
Perhaps their 1-1 draw, they initially fell behind to a Jordan Brown effort. So it was a very quick response though, getting back level with a Brad Halliday shot from the edge of the box that took a deflection past Lawrence Vigouroux. Salford City just got there, Harry, and I mean just got there. They were beaten 1-0 at home to Gillingham. It was a fairly even game right up until the end of the game when Liam Shepherd fouled fullback Lewis Page, who'd been brought onto Gillingham. Che Alexander, the right back, stood over the penalty, and I was not expecting to see him over a penalty for Gillingham. And to be fair, he took it really well, so I'm not going to knock him for that. That's an excellent result to Gillingham, who've been really good at home, but it's felt like their away form has probably held them back to making a really, really strong end to the season. But regardless, they've recovered. I'm excited to see how they build next year. Salford, with that defeat, were basically dependent, therefore, on Mansfield Town not getting a big enough win. They go away at Colchester United, took the lead in first half stoppage time through Riley Harbottle, and then spent the rest of the game trying to increase the lead a bit more. There was an effort, for instance, of Davis Keeler-Dunn that curled onto the bar. A really big chance to Will Swan that he managed to put wide. They eventually got a second deep into stoppage time through James Gale. They needed one more goal. If they got a 3-0 win, they would have pipped Salford to that final playoff spot.
It's bonkers, isn't it? And I think I saw that when that second goal went in and it went 2-0 up, a Mansfield fan threw a flare onto the pitch thinking that they'd made it, and they'd obviously not done their maths right. But, I mean, you can't blame missing out on the playoffs on today for Mansfield.
No, you can't.
They had that loss against Harrogate last weekend. They had those 2 consecutive 0-0 draws at home against Grimsby and Sutton. And, I mean, even looking at the goal difference, they were thrashed 5-2 by Salford just a couple of months ago, and they're the team that have ended finishing 1 goal ahead of them. So, there's a lot of head scratching about this season for Mansfield.
It is. It's like with Milton Keynes Dons in the division above. We can't really isolate it to an individual moment because there's been so many opportunities, I think, for Mansfield to get over the line, in the very least the playoffs, potentially even automatic promotion as well. And I guess I kind of wonder now, Harry, about Nigel Clough. His contract's up at the end of this season. Might he get maybe one more go at it next year? Although you look at someone like Darrell Clark, who's, for instance, available and is originally from the area. I'm very curious to see if Mansfield are going to stick or twist it in this season, because they've spent a long time in League Two now trying to get up into the division above.
Yeah, I personally think they need a change of direction. I mean, the thing is, in all of these seasons recently where they've been trying to go up, they've been trying to do so as one of the favourites every year. It's not like they're a team that are expected to finish 7th and they finish 8th. They're sort of predicted to go up automatically every year.
Yeah, and I feel like part of that comes from media outlets saying, because of Nigel Clough. And I kind of understand why they say that. There's this perception that Nigel Clough is one of the very best managers around the Football League, one that any side would want to have. And he's always been brilliant at stabilising football clubs, getting them back on track, looking upwards again. But you actually look at his record, he doesn't win a lot of promotions. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen for him with Derby County. It didn't happen for him with Sheffield United. His one promotion with Burton Albion was actually after inheriting a side from Jimmy Field Hasselbank that was 2 points clear at the top of the table, and he got them over the line in second place. And likewise with Mansfield now, playoff final last year, beaten by Port Vale, miss out on playoffs altogether this time. It's familiar frustrations that people find when they have Nigel Clough as their manager.
Yeah, I just think they need to try something a bit different. Unfortunately,
but it's that gamble, isn't it? Because Mansfield have been notorious burners for us on this podcast for years now, and for other people likewise. So,
yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the biggest decision this season that I've still not got my head around was bringing back Danny Johnson and then barely playing him for the rest of the season. He finished the season on 13 goals. 12 of them were scored for Walsall, so he's picked up 1 goal for Mansfield. But there's obviously a player in there who knows how to score goals, and they've missed out on goal difference. You just think, if you had a manager who had better utilised what he had available to him, would they be in the playoff spots now? And I know it's easy to look at things with the power of hindsight, isn't it? But yeah,
I still feel like the reason they recalled Johnson was more to jeopardise Walsall than it was to benefit themselves. Johnson came in a couple of years ago for Morant, and it was clear that it was just never the right fit. And it was part of the reason he went out to Walsall in the first place.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's the reason why they brought him back. But if you've got him there and you've seen how well he was playing in the first half of the season, you'd just play him, wouldn't you? I think he's had a few appearances, but most of them have been off the bench, and yeah, it's frustrating.
Really frustrating, but there have been some positives in Mansfield season. Davis Keeler-Dunn has had a great impact since coming into Burton Albion in the second half of the season. Lucas Akins looks very good leading the line. Alfie Kilgore's been a great signing in that back line, adds some real solidity into there. It's undoubtedly not a bad team, and just surely at some point they're going to get this right and go over the line. Surely. Got to believe that.
You'd think so. I mean, now that the season's over, I can say as a certainty, Mansfield were the best side that I saw at Prenton Park in terms of how they played on the day. That defence is just, it's so strong for the level. And yeah, they've got a good side, and I completely agree about Davis Keeler-Dunn. He's been a real breath of fresh air for them. Lucas Akins has obviously got a lot of experience and had a good year as well. But yeah, personally, I just think they need to get somebody in who can try something a bit different and bring some fresh blood into the club.
I'm curious to see if they do stick with Clough or make the twist and go to somewhere else. We'll see what happens in the summer. You've got to feel for Mansfield Town fans a little bit, Harry. They miss out on the playoffs by a single goal. And next weekend, they've got to see one of Notts County or Chesterfield go up into the same division as them.
Yeah, that's going to sting a bit, isn't it? I suppose the only thing...
That's a game they want both to lose.
The only thing you can say to try and soften the blow is at least you've got a local away day next year.
Yeah, I suppose. I've always quite wondered, don't you? You quite like the idea of having this local away day. Then I feel like you actually get around to that fixture and realise, oh, wait, we could actually lose this.
I mean, I'm feeling exactly the same about Wrexham.
Yeah, I was wondering about that Wrexham-Tranmere, if there is a kind of rivalry there or anything like that.
I'm concerned.
I think it should be. Wrexham will want to be a real force next season, certainly. And we'll see who comes up with them. It's Notts County v Chesterfield on Saturday for a place in the EFL. That's going to be a great game, by the way. Second v third nationally, Wembley. That could be a huge crowd over there for a 50 game.
Yeah, and if the semi-finals are anything to go by, expect goals.
National playoffs always deliver. And talking about playoffs, we've got the League 2 one organised now. It's going to be Stockport County against Salford City, and it's going to be Carlisle United against Bradford City. Harry, I don't know about you, but I look at the three EFL campaigns, Championship, League 1 and League 2, and they're all exciting ties, but I really think League 2 is the most difficult of the lot to call. There's just 4 points between those four teams, between Stockport County and Salford City. Championship, the gap is 11 points between third place Luton Town and sixth place Sunderland. It's 19 points between third place Sheffield Wednesday and sixth place Peterborough United. League 2 is a very difficult playoff campaign to call this season. There's valid arguments to all four of those sides.
Yeah, it's one that's always so hard to call, isn't it? But Stockport have grown into the season so well and pushed those automatic spots right to the final day. Bradford have got the best goal scorer in the league, both in terms of numbers and probably in terms of ability as well. Carlisle, Paul Simpson's just been working magic there all year. And then Salford, their mentality over the last few months, I mean, even today losing 1-0, they've done things the hard way every single week.
And they aren't half entertaining on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And they love a late goal, don't they? So
they
you'd never
absolutely do. Going to be must-watch games, those definitely. But that is the automatics wrapped up. That is the playoffs wrapped up. That's the season wrapped up. And we'll run through the other games involving teams that had nothing really serious to play for. Stevenage were up at Barrow and secured second place with a 1-0 win. It was a goal from Jake Reeves. It was a ball down the left. Delivery was cleared to the edge of the box. Reeves takes it down, cuts it onto his left. Thars a low shot in off the near post. Stevenage, Harry, I don't think we've had your thoughts on them before. One promotion this time last week. I mean, what a job Steve Evans has done there.
He's done brilliantly, hasn't he? And again, it's another one that's a brilliant team rather than a team with some brilliant individuals in it. Not to say that they're not good players, but it's all just clicked together perfectly this season, hasn't it? I mean, all the talk about how good Leyton Orient's defence has been. In the end, Stevenage only conceded 5 goals more than Orient this year. They've had so many games where they've turned up and just dominated at the back. Carl Piergianni finished on 7 goals. I think Sweeney finished on 4 goals. You've got 3 players who all hit double figures. And yeah, Steve Evans has done a brilliant job, and I'm excited to see what they do next year because the core of that squad is really good. And when they've got a fit goalkeeper again who can play every single week, there'll be a really good spine in that team.
I have a feeling they're just going to shithouse the division next year and widen a lot of people up. Classic Steve Evans style.
Sneak into the playoffs with a mic.
If they got into the playoffs, that would be absolutely unbelievable to think about next year for them.
Yeah. I mean, considering the possibility of Stevenage
v Derby County is the league game next year. Fantastic.
But yeah, they fully deserved the promotion in the end. They did have that bit of a wobble. I covered a few of their games when they weren't playing too well around sort of February time, and I did wonder whether it was a case of the mentality dropping off after they had that FA Cup run. But they've turned things around really well and just defended so well this year and then popped up with important goals when they've needed them. And especially at home, they've just been so hard to break down, haven't they?
It's been fascinating, actually, when you run through the stats, because there hasn't been a particularly prolific team this season. For instance, all of the top 6 have scored no more than 66 goals. The 2 top scorers up the top of that table are Salford in 7th and Mansfield in 8th, who've got 72. It's not been much in these games. It's been all about the defences.
Yeah, it really has been. And that's the thing with League 2, isn't it? You get out of this league by playing football in a certain way and sticking to your principles, playing like that week in, week out. And that's what Steve Evans has done so well this year. That's what Richie Wellens has done so well this year. You could say the same about the teams in the playoffs as well. They have a footballing identity and they stick to it, and everybody knows what their job is, and they get it done, and they don't try anything too fancy and too silly. And that's what it takes to get out of this division ultimately.
I still want 7-goal thrillers every game in the playoffs, though.
Oh yeah, fingers crossed.
So there's lots of drama in those games, definitely. Newport County 2, Crewe Alexandra 2 was actually a very entertaining game with a brilliant finale. The opener from Crewe was a beauty from Thorback Rio Adebisi. Great finish. Newport went level through an Omar Bogle penalty. Frantic added time though, Harry. Bogle scored another penalty in the 93rd, but Crewe got an equaliser in the 93rd to Lockenbrook. 2-2 at Rodney Parade. Nice into the season actually for both of those. Crewe have been especially good at home. Newport have really improved quite well under Graham Coughlin. Might be able to look up what's next season for them, so good to see. Swindon Town 2, Crawley Town 1. The header flicked on that was reached to by Charlie Austin to grab Swindon's opener, firing past Corey Adai. Second goal for Swindon is a brilliant Jake Kane free kick from a long distance out. That really needs to be seen. It's a great goal. Crawley got back level through Crawley got a goal back, through a Dom Telford penalty. Swindon would get a penalty of their own, but Russian Hepburn Murphy's spot kick would be saved by Adai. News out of Swindon Town, Harry, confirmed recently. They are going to get Michael Flynn in to lead them into next season after his time at Walsall came to an end recently.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that one. Kind of on the fence about Flynn. I know that there's been a bit of a debate as to whether he's a brilliant manager or whether he was just the perfect Newport manager. And Swindon, I guess, is where he'll prove that. But I'd be interested to know how are you feeling about that one? Do you think? I think he's probably a good appointment, but and I don't know whether Jody Morris was going to work out ultimately. But
I want to echo your thoughts on that because it is weird, the two Flynns we've had. I feel like he did amazing things for Newport County, but ultimately never got them over the line, missing out on those two playoff finals. And it did kind of make me wonder if maybe he's a man who just keeps falling short of the opportunities. But the Walsall one, I don't really put a lot of blame on him. I kind of feel like the Saddlers is a bit of a poison chalice at the moment. Just that kind of job that they're not going to get anything right. And as whilst James keeps massively overrating them every single season, they're going to stay that way, certainly. So I'm intrigued, and I think if there is the right backing, there's the potential for Swindon Town to be a very interesting, entertaining outfit next season. I'm quite excited to see how that goes for them at the county ground. Talking of Walsall, they did get a win, 2-1 over Doncaster Rovers. Their opener from Colin Wilkinson doubled the lead through Isaac Hutchinson. Bobby Faulkner got a goal back from a corner. A little bit of positive to the end for Walsall. Donny, what an atrocious season this has been for them under Danny Schofield.
Yeah, they'll just be glad to see the back of it, I think, won't they? It's really not worked out. Again, Schofield's one of those where I'm not sure whether he should be given the summer or not, or whether it's a case of trying to get somebody new in now, because if their January transfer window was anything to go by, I worry about who's going to be coming in through the door over the summer.
Yeah, I really worry about the direction that club seems to be going at the moment. It seems just like a lack of ambition from there, and I'm equally worried, to be honest, Harry, about AFC Wimbledon. They were beaten 1-0 at Grimsby Town in a fairly even game. The goal is, it's a mess. You can't really sum up AFC Wimbledon any better than this. It's Danny Luorsi who has the ball out on the left-hand side. He tries to play a cut back, and it ends up taking a massive deflection off Isaac Okundere and into the goal. And that proves the only goal of the game. That own goal from Isaac Okundere went down clearly as going off him rather than being scored by Orsi. Grimsby, they've finished 11th, which I've heard from DN35 is Grimsby's highest league finish for 17 years. Now, part of me is really depressed by that statistic, but is it also fair to say it's a sign of the progress and potential that the Mariners finally have?
Definitely, it's nice for them just to have had a season of a bit of stability, really, isn't it? They've had some good results. They've gone about things pretty well.
I almost kind of feel like they could have done a bit more though, because the FA Cup run was brilliant, and I've always kind of felt like, why can you do that in the Cup but not recreate to the same level in the league?
Yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from, and at times they've looked really good this season, and then at other times they've looked like a team that finished 7th in the National League last year. So, be interesting to see where they go next year. I think they can be happy with an 11th place finish. When you've come back up into a new division, the most important thing is stabilising, isn't it? And then having a foundation to build on. I guess my only concern with that would be how well Hartlepool did last year compared to where they are this time around. And so it'll be about getting the recruitment right and keeping hold of the likes of sort of McAtee who played well this year.
I think it's important to keep hold of Paul Hurst, who will likely be circling around some potential jobs higher up, but I think he has done some great things in his second spell with Grimsby Town and hopefully can be the right guy to take them forward to the next season. I'm excited to see the growth of someone like Evan Curry, for instance, who's played in the midfield and looked quite good. Wimbledon, though, pretty damn worried about them. I mean, they finished 21st, Harry.
Yeah, 5 points off the relegation zone. I think they finished on 48 points. I think they had 37, something like at Christmas. It's really concerning, isn't it? And it's not going to be an easy fix. Again, I can't make my mind up about whether or not Johnny Jackson can take too much of the blame. It was disappointing losing Ayub Assal in January, but again, he's only one player and they've brought in El Hamadi and he's picked up a lot of goals. So you can't pin too much of it on that. And yeah, it's just been a really poor end to the season for them, hasn't it?
I think there could be quite a few putting them in the relegation conversation if they don't sort themselves out because, it's been a miserable couple of seasons really for AC Wimbledon. This time last year, this season's not been much better. Pretty miserable end to the campaign to Wimbledon. The amount of times they've dropped points and winning positions is really, really terrible these last couple of years. They've got a lot of work to do. And the final game, Harrogate Town 1, Rochdale 1. I'm a little bit disappointed with this scoreline because, to be honest with you, Harry, I thought this would end up 4-3. I had this one down as a goal fest, and to only have 2 goals kind of disappoints me.
Would have been nice to have seen Rochdale go down all guns blazing.
And Harrogate have been a goal-heavy team across the entire season.
Yeah, they have, and yeah, 1-1, other than a 0-0, is about as disappointing as it could have been, really, isn't it?
It is.
Harrogate, I know this gets said every year, but they're one to maybe be a little bit worried about next year. I just think they've been very reliant on loan players this year. They're not going to get Ollie Igbe back. They had Jaheim Headley, obviously, who played so well for them the first half of the season. I would not be surprised to see Luke Armstrong move on. I said in the summer that I was surprised that he'd stayed for a second season at Harrogate, and he's had another good year. And you think surely somebody higher up in League Two would take a punt on him. I think I said last time I was on, I'd love to have him at Tranmere, and I'm sure there are plenty of League Two clubs that would snap up somebody like him because he's got such a good eye for goal.
I've always felt like Harrogate's specialty really is just being a little bit chaotic, just being able to basically give as much as they can take, just end up in really high scoring games, and that's what's enabled them to secure another season of League Two football this year. Exactly how long that lasts, we'll have to wait and see, but you know for a fact that Sam Weaver will stay there regardless with the association he has with that club. One more draw with Harrogate. The opener was from Rochdale. The opener was from the Dale, Jimmy Keohane. Ian Henderson carrying the ball through the middle. Lovely through ball to Tyree Sinclair, laying off the Keohane to finish in the box. Harrogate's equaliser. Toby Sims, the right back, his third senior goal, running at the back post to get on the end of a deep cross. Rochdale's 102-year association with the Football League coming to an end with a draw. And I guess you might carry some of the things you do with Hartlepool here because they picked up 4 points in the last 2 games, Harry.
Yeah, it is frustrating to see, isn't it? I mean, even if you go a little bit further back in terms of the last few weeks, considering, if we're being honest, how long they've been relegated for, has been much longer than since when it became mathematically guaranteed. And you just hope that they can carry that into next year and it's not just a case of they've been playing for pride. But again, really interested to see what they do over the summer because there needs to be some quite significant changes, you'd think.
They are entering a very, very nasty division, as anyone down there will be able to tell you. Full League 2 table to finish. Leyton Orient first, 91 points. Stevenage second, 85. Northampton Town third on 83. Stockport County fourth on 79. Carlisle United fifth on 76. Bradford City sixth on 76. Salford City seventh on 75. Mansfield Town eighth on 75. Barrow 9th on 62, Swindon Town 10th on 61, Grimsby Town 11th on 61, Tranmere Rovers 12th on 58, Crewe Alexandra 13th on 58, Sutton United 14th on 58, Newport County 15th on 57, Walsall 16th on 55, Gillingham 17th on 55, Doncaster Rovers 18th on 55, Harrogate Town 19th on 52, Colchester United 20th on 49, ASC Wimbledon 21st on 48, Crawley Town 22nd on 46, Hartlepool United 23rd on 43, Rochdale 24th on 38. Regular season done. What's round the corner, Harry? It's my favourite time of the entire season. The playoffs are underway very soon. Much like last season, where I recruited a fan from each of our clubs to take part in the playoff previews, they will be scheduled to you at the end of this week. The playoffs get underway with League One on Friday. We've got a quick turnaround. I cannot wait for it. Harry, thank you very much for being part of this episode reviewing the final day.
Thank you.
Join us very soon for the playoff previews. We are not done with the season just yet. We'll see you then. Goodbye.